Ladies and gentlemen, Ilhan Omar's collapse. She just fell to pieces in Congress as she realized they're coming for her. In a moment straight out of a blockbuster takedown, the little Mogadishu fraudster and welfare queen ripped off her mask and headscarf, then calmly handed President Trump the signed, notarized denaturalization forms on a silver platter. That's right. She's basically volunteering to give up everything she schemed so hard to fake her way into.
The one place where we thought we would never experience this is the U.S. goddamn states.
Whoa, whoa. The mouth on her, man, I wonder, does she kiss her brother with those lips? But think about it. Ilhan Omar had every chance to rebuild a cooperative and fruitful relationship with the rest of America, contributing like a real citizen, following the rules and putting this country first, which by not doing so is treason by oath. But would you just look at that? This sham of a ceremony, folks. She's got her hand on the Quran, pledging loyalty to a system that's straight up anti-American, clashing with everything our Constitution stands for. To her, and people like her, she's thinking Sharia over stars and stripes. But that's not just a slip up. It's a full-on betrayal, and it never should have been allowed to happen. But now, with her latest outburst trashing the U.S. goddamn states, got with a T, like we're the enemy. Well, she's sealed her fate. Imagine the headlines soon to come. Breaking: Ilhan Omar arrested in dramatic Capitol raid, handcuffs and all. Picture the scene. Federal agents storming in, slapping the cuffs on her while she spews more venom. Tim Walz warned of ICE raiding churches, and boy, was he off the mark, huh?
I would fully expect, and we are preparing for, an influx of more agents, more of the very visible public theatrics of the raids, of the harassments, and you got faith leaders here. I would not put it past this administration to target midnight mass services amongst folks going to worship, because that's who they are.
But I can see it now, vividly, envisioning a day when ICE raids the Capitol and there will be no amount of MPD or paid protesters that can try and stop them as they make a beeline directly for Ilhan's office door. They'll kick it in if they have to because she may try and barricade herself in. But by then, most of the Minneapolis police force will have transitioned to ICE agents anyway. And that's a fact, as dozens of officers just resigned from the Minneapolis Police Department, and the lion's share of them have already joined ICE. Cops are getting tired of working for liberals who, in fact, hate law enforcement.
So we've had almost 221,000 new recruits or applicants that have applied to be new recruits. You would think that the staggering amount of violence against ICE special agents and deportation officers would decrease our recruiting, but it actually hasn't had that effect. I think what a lot of people want to do is they want to get into federal law enforcement. They want to work for a quality law enforcement agency, and that's what we're seeing here in this. But, it makes us feel better to know the fact that we have so many people behind us that would still want to join ICE and join the ICE mission, be a law enforcement officer, even though they're getting demonized and attacked every day. So it's definitely given us hope.
Acting Director, I want to get your take.
And you heard that from the acting director. Almost 221,000 Americans have applied to work at ICE, despite all the violence from the left. But not to mention, Commander Bovino says Minneapolis police officers have been thanking ICE and Border Patrol for deporting illegals. And can you blame them? These local Leos are getting fed up with Frey and Walz, and I bet they're jockeying for the top spot to be the one to slap silver bracelets on Walz and Ilhan's wrists. That'd be worth it alone for me. You can keep the pay.
And something else, Aisha, that we're seeing is that rank and file of many of the area police departments, including Minneapolis Police Department. Many of their rank and file police officers are coming up to our agents on the ground saying, thank you for what you're doing. We support you 100%. That's in direct opposition to, say, a Mayor Fry calling for cops to fight federal agents. So we've got the support of the rank and file and the American public. This mission is going to continue.
So they want to help. I mean, they're coming up to you and telling you that they actually do want to help, but their hands are tied.
Exactly. We've seen this in California and Los Angeles. We saw this with Chicago rank and file police officers. And guess what? We're seeing it in Minneapolis also. And to any of those Minneapolis police officers, and I'm hearing this is happening, that want to join the U.S. Border Patrol or ICE, we welcome you with open arms. We support you. We support you making American cities like Minneapolis a safer place. So I'd be happy to meet personally with those officers that might be wanting to join a law enforcement agency that supports them.
There is zero support from Governor Tim Walz, who is quick to rush on camera and stand behind podiums inciting violence, but also refuses to answer any questions about his quitting and dropping out of the gubernatorial race and no longer running for a third term as governor. The failure of a human being and the slightest use of the term a man who takes cheap shots and jabs at Trump any chance he gets, but when his own city is invaded by domestic terrorists, illegally storming church services under the guise of false protections by the First Amendment rights and freedoms, and only worse than to be led by a sucking faggot like Don Lemon. Well, Governor Tampon, I ain't gay, but $20 is $20. Tim Walz can't even be bothered so much as to show his face and must rely on an incompetent staffer, probably in fear of retaliation, because they know what happened to whistleblowers and others, now may they rest in peace, deceased Democrat constituents, and what happened to them and their fate at the hand of Walz, and putting out a hit on them, it seems, maybe more than likely. But this is all you get out of this weenie. And it says, the governor has repeatedly and unequivocally urged protesters to do so peacefully. While people have a right to speak out, he in no way supports interrupting a place of worship. Yeah, that's it. But I digress. And I bet he's tied up and inundated with the shitstorm that he has brought onto himself and is raining down from the massive fraud DOJ probe going on as we speak. But where was I? Oh, yeah, right. But then the jail cell slammed shut and Ilhan Omar jailed for treasonous oaths, no more Lux congressional perks, and stripped down bare to only what she came into this world with, nothing. But stripped of her role, her fancy title yanked away like the fraud it is, removed from Congress in a humiliating vote, another great headline tag. Expulsion vote. Omar booted out an epic MAGA victory, but it doesn't stop there. Oh no. Then denaturalized, her citizenship revoked faster than you can say Somalia first or Somalia last. All wishful thinking, of course, but all of those alleged schemes, the brother-husband whispers, the immigration dodges, boom, exposed, and she gets erased. And the grand finale? Deported by airplane back to East Africa. Deportation Day fills all the feeds as Omar boards her last one-way flight back to Somalia, waving goodbye to the goddamn USA. Cargo class, no return ticket. Straight back to the home she loves so much, right? Home.
Masked, armed men who are in plain clothes that are snatching people off the streets, unwilling to identify themselves. You have the military being deployed in our streets. My God, this is America. You have states' rights being disregarded. So, a constitutional crisis that's being created in front of our eyes. And the same week where we have a president who has deployed the military, who are trained to kill our enemies, not Americans, but our enemies, are in our streets. It's the same week that we are going to have a military parade. Can you imagine that image that is going to be coming out of our country? I mean, I grew up in a dictatorship. And I don't even remember ever witnessing anything like that. To have a democracy, a beacon of hope for the world, to now be turned into one of the worst countries where the military are in our streets without any regard for people's constitutional rights, while our president is spending millions of dollars propping himself up like a failed dictator with a military parade. It is really shocking, and it should be a wake-up call for all Americans to say this is not the country we were born in. This is not the country we believe in. This is not the country our founding fathers imagined. And this is not the country that is supported by our Constitution, our ideals, our values. And we should all collectively be out in the streets rejecting what is taking place this week.
Should Ilhan Omar be deported?
Yes. 100%.
I say yes.
Yes.
I think so.
Should Ilhan Omar be deported?
1,000%.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely 100%.
Yeah, and her brother, because we don't separate families.
This is not the country you were born in. This is not the country you believe in. So don't you dare twist your lips and face up like that and, in a way, try to pretend like you are America first, because you are not. These are our streets, not your streets. Ilhan, your streets are unpaved dirt roads that all lead to Al-Shabaab. And yes, 1,000,000% Ilhan should be deported. But this isn't just justice, everyone. It's the outrage we've been waiting for. She's been playing us for fools, sucking up taxpayer dollars while plotting against the red, white, and blue. Now it's time to hit her with the full force of American law and that Constitution our founding fathers created that she loves to talk about and toss out there during her diatribes. But this is it. Arrest, jail, strip, remove, denaturalize, deport her, because she done around and now is going to find out. And so you see, instead of playing by the rules and giving back, she opted to become our highest ranked criminal and money launderer, allegedly tied to billions in welfare fraud that's been ripping off hardworking taxpayers in Minnesota for years. And luckily for all of us, you and me, and the rest of our America First, patriotic, flag-waving neighbors, which is the vast majority of this country outside of a few massively woke, far-left, uber-progressive, blue, democratic, socialist cities. President Trump is always in the mood to make America great again. He's delivering on those campaign promises, fulfilling the mandate we all begged for, asked for, waited for, prayed for, and most importantly, voted for. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel. This is the biggest news happening right now, in my opinion. But let's start with this here, and we shall call it the meme. No, you know what? Let's call it what it really is. The blatantly obvious, God's honest truth of the day, or at least I hope it is. But if not, then, much like LV Nation went live the other night and talked about, and how many of you subscribe to Lou? But he says we seriously need to talk about this.
This is an AI video doing political commentary. By the way, they're doing political commentary on the left. there's a lot of Democrats that believe this, and there's a lot of Republicans that believe this. And not only are they just posting these videos, but they're getting like literally hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views weekly, and they're monetized. I remember there was a time where YouTube banned me because they thought I was being incendiary. They thought I was being some type of jerk on YouTube. All right, so they demonetized my channel, and then I had to go make a new one, and I had to go figure life out. But yet these AI channels are literally taking over. So after I click this one, I go to my home screen, here, and guess what? There's two of them waiting for me right here. There are two AIs waiting for me doing political commentary on Gavin Newsom. I'm going to click one of them again.
Welcome to
this right here is crazy. Here is, and I'm going to show you how many views they get and how this is like literally poisoning people's brains. I click it right here.
They're still turning the lights on every night in buildings where almost nobody works anymore. Drive through Midtown Manhattan after dark, and you'll see.
Okay, so now we go to her face.
If you want to understand the economic forces reshaping American cities.
What do you guys see here? Because they think that this might be real. Now, there's a lot of people that are on this chat that literally believe that this is real. Somebody said, do you believe that if I'm real?
And so you see, ladies and gentlemen, this is quite interesting to me, as I had already been going down this rabbit hole for quite some time. I had actually already began doing my own research and ironically leveraging AI tools to do so. And I originally asked Grok about whether the woman, Elizabeth Davis, in a YouTube video about California gas prices and Chevron pulling out and leaving Gavin Newsom wrecked, but if she was a real person or not, or AI. And we had a thread going that Grok labeled the AI generated news presenter debate. But this was back on January 7th. So that was almost 2 weeks ago. And so now I see just days ago, another YouTuber, independent and thankfully conservative voice on our team talking about it too. But Grok told me in reply to my initial question, which was, is this woman real or AI? That the YouTube video uploaded January 7, 2026 to the channel Elizabeth Davis features a highly polished narrator-style presentation on California's refinery policies and their regional impacts. But while the content cites real events and sources, for example, refinery closures, bipartisan governor warnings, gas price spikes, viewer comments frequently speculate that the presenter is AI, with remarks like, good job or good report, AI lady. I think Elizabeth is AI, but it's okay as the news is spot on. And this podcast is a very good AI. However, at the time, no evidence exists of a real person named Elizabeth Davis matching this profile outside this channel. And the flawless delivery, consistent visuals, and rapid production of similar videos align with common traits of AI-generated content creators. Examples being synthetic voices and avatars used for news-style commentary. But also, there's no disclosure in the description admitting it's AI, but the pattern strongly indicates it is. I have since gone back to try and pull some more of the data from that initial video that caught my attention, but it appears to be unavailable and possibly the entire channel has been deleted. So there's that. But like I said, let's start with this here, and we shall call it the meme, or better yet, let's call it what it really is, the blatantly obvious God's honest truth of the day, or at least I hope it is, because at its core and in its simplest form, the goals of the left and the Democrats and DSA and deep state, George Soros, professional paid agitators and awful liberals alike, the media, MSMs, all they want to do is destroy us. And by doing so at all costs, their most often used tactic, strategy, or weapon is mass fed, on repeat lies and propaganda. And so I need to make sure you all, and I honestly need your help with this too, in reaching as many people as we possibly can to share this truth. And that being Believe half of what you see and none of what you hear, as the left is using AI now to accelerate their campaign of lies. And AI is getting really good, like really, really, really good at passing for the real thing, especially when folks are in a hurry or just consuming and scrolling on a small screen, such as their iPhone that is delivering their feed. Now, I know the majority of you watch my show on TV, but that isn't always the case, especially for these Midas touch style networks who just blast out endless terabytes among terabytes of mindless drivel and propagandized rhetoric and rhetorical content all damn day long. So we must get the word out and amplify our voices so people are aware of the truth and know where to go to always find it and get more of it. Like here on my show. And here you see the latest from MSN and the Motley Fool headline and an important message for Medicare starting January 31. That's less than 2 weeks before the deadline hits. Many seniors depend on those easy virtual check-ins from home, but soon you may need to head to a rural facility for coverage on most non-mental health services. And then I don't want you to miss out or miss this, and definitely don't let this sneak up on you. Oh, and one of my personal favorite reads, Money Talk News, but more importantly, not wasting money, but finding ways to save. And can I get a quick show of hands? How many of you would like to learn more about how to avoid an unexpected or higher bill at your next checkup? I'm talking simple tips, and what's real is an important message to share. Like, with these changes hitting soon, many seniors are pleasantly surprised to discover just how many tailored Medicare coverage options are available in their area. Like possibly better plans with extra telehealth perks where possible, or ways to save on costs they didn't know about. But I get it. And I know because you all have told me. Medicare can be confusing, especially now with provider directory issues and some of these flexibilities ending. But even after spending hours on Medicare.gov, people end up frustrated or worried about coverage for their doctors, prescriptions, and budget, especially if telehealth access shrinks. But here's the best part. Getting personalized, unbiased guidance from licensed Medicare advisors doesn't cost a thing, and there's no obligation. My friends at Chapter can help you understand your options like Original Medicare, supplements, Advantage plans, and Part D, and find the right fit for your needs, doctors, prescriptions, and budget. Because there's no one size fits all for everyone. You are all unique, and Chapter gets that. They compare every plan out there, over 24,000 options nationwide, no pushing favorites. They are completely unbiased. It's quick, simple, and completely free. Just a short phone call to Chapter at 270-467-2426 today will get you on the phone, and you'll feel relief when you speak with an advisor and see what might save you money or better cover your care. That number's on the screen. And I tell you what, most people wish they'd called sooner, because when you need to choose or review your Medicare plan, especially with these telehealth rollbacks, call them. They're the only national advisor that compares and recommends every plan, and they've helped people save over $1,100 on average in healthcare costs. Help finding the right Medicare coverage is always free. So if you're turning 65 soon, have questions, or want to prepare for these changes, call the number on your screen, 270-467-2426. There's also a link in the description to learn more. And I was actually having a conversation with a friend yesterday about all of this and what the left is up to and will likely end up looking like or being, or how the party might change or devolve over the next 10 to 12 years. And so you see, here's basically pretty much what I laid out for him, or at least my prediction. But for years, Democrats have relied on promises like reparations and expanded welfare programs to draw in Black voters, along with what I see as uneducated freeloaders and the laziest of lazy folks out there. I think Jasmine Crockett, perhaps, as the most recent and latest example of that, and her weak and also failed attempt at identity politics.
She wants to be a senator, though her street girl persona is about as real as her nails.
The caricature he tried to make of you at this conservative youth conference, I think every black woman heard what he was trying to say there.
We have a candidate in me who absolutely plans to talk to any and everybody, and that is why they are afraid. The fact that he said I have a quote-unquote street girl persona, I'm sorry, but anybody that you talk to knows my credentials. They know that I've gone to school. They know that I'm educated. I never tried to put on some random story about where I came from, but at the end of the day, I am who I am, and I am authentic.
Our next guest has some more on Ms. Crockett. He's Benny Johnson. He's host of The Benny Show, and he has an exclusive report now on Crockett's alleged background. See, he traveled to where Crockett claims she is from a tough area of South Dallas. You know, you hear her speak. She tries to talk street like, okay. Compared to where she's actually from, it's quite a different picture. Where she's actually from is a beautiful, well-manicured area for the elite and highly educated. Here is a clip from Benny's report.
Yo, what's up, guys? We are in Dallas, Texas today in the heart of Jasmine Crockett's district. It is rough, it is tough, it is hood, and it is foul, just like Jasmine Crockett. That's the whole persona, right? Puff talking, street fighting girl from the ghetto. That's Jasmine Crockett's entire aura, the attitude.
Looks like in the shitter to me.
The volume.
Don't tell me to calm down, because y'all talk noise and then you can't take control.
The voice.
You know, the congressional seat is over 4 times as large as my House seat.
I'm trying to get clarification.
But there's a little problem with Jasmine. It's all a lie. She's code switching. She's a fraud, and we can prove it today. This is where Jasmine says she's from, but this is where Jasmine's really from. Welcome to St. Louis, Missouri, Jasmine Crockett's hometown. But let me show you where Jasmine Crockett's really from. Welcome to St. Louis, specifically the Republican suburbs of St. Louis, with the mansions, country clubs, and private schools. This is where Jasmine Crockett was raised. We're talking quiet suburbs, manicured lawns, college brochures in the mailbox, and neighbors who wave when they mow the lawn. This is where Jasmine Crockett went to school. It's called the Mary Institute and St. Louis Country Day School. It's one of the most prestigious institutions in the entire country, also one of the most expensive. Check this out. This isn't just a good school. This is the #1 school in the entire state of Missouri. It costs $35,000 per year to attend high school here. And the reason why is because the average test scores here guarantee your placement in an elite college institution. It's one of the best preparatory schools in the world. The average SAT score here is 1350, and the average ACT score here is 30. This is an elite institution.
And that is actually what they are fearful of, is my authenticity, because it rings true with every single American, whether they're a Texan or not. It rings true that I am fighting for real everyday people.
In a December 2024 Vanity Fair profile, you talked about, quote, and I'm going to read a lot of the quote just to put it in the context, quote, all the complexities within the Latino community. The immigration thing has always been something that has perplexed me about this community. It's basically like, I fought to get here, but I left y'all where I left y'all, and I want no more y'all to come here. If I wanted to be with y'all, I would stay with y'all, but I don't want y'all coming to my new home. It almost reminds me of what people would talk about when they would talk about kind of like slave mentality and the hate that some slaves would have for themselves. It's almost like a slave mentality that they have. Now, about the time that that was published last year, around 1 million Latino voters in Texas were voting for Trump. Do they all have slave mentality?
No, and that's not what that said at all, to be clear. It did not say that every Latino has that type of mentality.
No, but the ones that vote for people who believe in strong or Trump's immigration policies.
So I don't believe that the people that voted for Trump believe in what they're actually getting.
Even worse, Because if your answer is they don't believe that they're getting what they think they're getting, that you're basically saying they're effing retards, right? Like, so that's even worse than saying they have a slave mentality. But there's also something funny about having Jake Tapper say y'all 17 times. But lady, you meant what you said. You meant what you said. And the irony, of course, of what you said is that many Latinos are Republicans right now, because guess what? Not all Latinos came here illegally. Many millions of Latinos from various countries came here legally. And often, particularly in Texas, in the border towns, they vote Republican because they came here legally. And while they may have an affinity to someone else who's coming from Mexico or Guatemala or somewhere, they may have some cultural affinity towards them. If they came legally and then they just see this person showing up and getting benefits and and getting in before their own family was able to get in all those things, they're pissed. And they're rightfully pissed. And they're Americans. And in some sense, they're more American than you are.
Now, some people get a little funny when you start talking about race, but this is real. There was a Trump-appointed justice. I testified because I had already sued the state of Texas because Texas is racist.
Yeah. And instead of talking about policy, when you're talking about the record speaks for itself, baby, let's talk about your record. Because the only reason you're the vice president is because the current president tried to have his last president killed. Let's talk about qualifications.
I think it's a question right now, Jake, not of what the president's trying to accomplish, but how. And I have concerns about using what I think is a questionable constitutional authority, imposing unilateral tariffs on NATO allies to achieve this objective, as much as I had concerns about the threat of a military invasion, which apparently is no longer being talked about. But the what here, I think, is absolutely in the interest of the United States of America. I mean, literally, I think it was Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of State who negotiated the purchase of Alaska, who first suggested that the United States also purchase Greenland. I traveled to the region in 2019, visited Iceland to literally make the case of our national security interest as China and Russia continue to intrude farther and farther into the Arctic. So what the president's trying to do here, I think, is absolutely in the interest of the United States of America. I would just rather see the president use his persuasive powers and U.S. investment in Greenland to lay a foundation for ultimately achieving that goal.
Let's talk about who has actually been fighting for people way before she ever ran for office, whether it was in the courtroom or if it was in the streets, making sure those that were out there wanting to exercise their constitutional right to come together and protest injustices. I was representing pro bono people that were getting arrested as they were out in the streets. So listen, I don't have time for him and their games. They are scared and they should be scared. I need Texans to focus in. I need them to think about the fact that our two senators literally just voted against extending the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies that would help an additional almost 4 million people that are on the marketplace in a state where we have 5 million that are completely uninsured. They basically are trying to put another 4 million people off of their insurance. And this is before we endure the cuts that are coming because of the big ugly bill where we know 17 million people in this country are going to lose their health care.
This is about us. It is about reclaiming who we are. They want to try to act like we are the outsiders, but the last time I checked, we ain't no colonizers. The last time I checked, they took us from our homeland. But this is the only home that we know. And they have sold us a promise of America that meant that we would all have an opportunity. But right now, a lot of people's dreams are being dashed. They are telling us that we are less than. I am here to tell you that we are more than. Especially when we stand together. So I just gotta say that I love my brother Tyrese. A lot of people don't know who it is that I do know because we have genuine relationships. It's a lot of people that really lack courage in this moment. That's right. But my homeboy said, listen, I'ma be in your city.
Come out on stage.
You gotta be here. And I was like, I may be in Houston because You know, oh, Cliff, where you at? The Cliff know who I am, right? DeSoto, where you at? Yeah. GP, where you at? All right, so the point is, Arlington. Yeah, 'cause I know y'all in here, right? I know y'all know who I am, and I know that y'all know that I'm about this life. So I was supposed to be in Houston. Ty said, listen, you gotta come back home to Dallas. So I done went all the way through East Texas. But my God said, you are coming on stage with me. I see a lot of women up front. How many of y'all got your bestie with you? Right? Let me tell you, I love this man. I know y'all do, because y'all right up front. Y'all doing the most. I know y'all do.
They're not doing the most, that's love.
They not even going, honestly, they're about to outlaw the idea of white supremacy and white hate. Like, they are about to be like, oh, that's not a thing. Forget the fact that you're talking about getting rid of like the classification for nooses in a time in which we have seen these random black bodies be strung up down south. Also, seemingly at a time in which you're back in office, because what you do is you embolden the hate. You embolden everybody to take off their hoods. That is what he has done. He is the one that is producing this violence. Listen, I'm staying focused. I'm not going to be distracted. And when they can tell me about their policies that are helping Texans, then we can have a conversation. Until then, take whatever shots you want to take at me, because I have been a black woman my entire life. I promise you, there are other people just like JD Vance who have tried to do the same racist tropes my entire life. And somehow I ascended and became a U.S. Congresswoman. It will not be different when I become a U.S. Senator. And we can have a conversation when I get to the Senate floor if he wants to talk. Just this past week, I saw, I don't remember which celebrity, but it was actually a celebrity. And I was like, I don't know that that's not necessarily a bad idea, but I'd have to think through it a lot. One of the things that they propose is black folk not have to pay taxes for a certain amount of time, because then again, that puts money back in your pocket. But at the same time, it may not be as objectionable to some people about actually giving out dollars. But obviously then you start dealing with the different tax brackets and things like that. And that's one of the reasons that, you know, we argue the reparations make sense, because so many black folk, not only do you owe for the labor that was stolen and killed and all the other things, right? But the fact is, like, we end up being so far behind, right? And so it's like, how do you bring forth people? Exactly. And so it's like, if you do the no tax thing for people that are already, say, struggling and aren't really paying taxes in the first place, it doesn't really exactly.
They may want those checks like they got during COVID.
Exactly.
But you think after paying $35,000 a year in tuition just to go to high school, and Lord only knows how much her college education costs, but you think she'd be smarter, at least by now, right? I mean, to hear her speak about blacks and slavery, you would think she was a black enslaved. I mean, she sounds about as informed as Democratic consultant Julie Rodzinski here. And her wild accusation that the GOP defended fire hoses against 1960s civil rights protesters, for which, of course, Scott Jennings promptly shut her ass down.
You listen to Scott and you listen to all this rhetoric coming out of the Republican Party. These are the same people that defended opening fire hoses on protesters in the 60s on the Selma Bridge. I mean, these are people who consistently
I think those were Democrats, Julie. Just FYI, those are Democrats. Those were Democrats in the 60s.
Scott, people like you
that was your party.
Exactly that kind of behavior.
But thank you for reminding everybody that Democrats were against civil rights.
How about this, Scott? Why don't you let me finish and stop interrupting? Because clearly, whenever anybody tries
you're the
to
one that brought up
Democrats.
I agree with you. Democrats shouldn't have been against civil rights.
You're the person. Well, there you go. How about this, Scott? Why don't you continue talking, and I'll just sit here and listen to
you know
Go
what,
ahead.
guys?
I
think we all have each other's X handles where we can continue this conversation.
I mean, I, for one, would much rather and prefer to listen to the sound logic and wise words of wisdom and actually true and historical fact shared by Scott Jennings. But we must circle back around to another misinformed Democrat, and that being Jasmine Crockett. And so you see, it's odd that Trump's former vice president would appear on CNN and support Trump and his mission for national security in acquiring Greenland. But that doesn't sound like a man that's in fear, as he was almost killed, according to you, right? But from what I hear, word on the street is the Democrats want Jasmine about as much as they wanted Tim Walz. So needless to say, her days are numbered.
Good to see you. Welcome back to The Takeout. There's been some surprising and early poll numbers in the closely watched Senate primary down in Texas that have caught our eye. State Representative James Tallarico has a 9-point edge in this poll over Congresswoman and presumed frontrunner, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Tallarico notably polled very well with Latino voters across the state, which is a growing and important element of the Democratic primary electorate in that state. The first round of the primary, of course, is on March 3rd.
Thank you, Erica. We're just more than a month away from the start of early voting for the Texas primary. And we're now getting a glimpse at where the candidates for the U.S. Senate stand, including a major shakeup.
Good morning. Yes, hot off the presses this morning. This new poll from KXA News and Emerson College Polling shows Austin area State Representative James Tallarico is leading Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. The poll of more than 400 likely Democratic primary voters shows Tallarico with 47% support, 9 points ahead of Crockett.
I firmly believe that all 30 million Texans deserve a U.S. Senator who's going to fight for their interests, not the interests of billionaire mega donors.
When I touch grass and when I see people, I feel it, and it comports with what we were seeing and kind of our way of trying to test to see if my candidacy would get some of those people that normally don't participate to get involved.
A major shift in the race for U.S. Senate. New polling shows the underdog for Democrats could now be in the lead.
Folks are making up their minds. Folks are starting to tune in. So you're going to see some different results from what we've seen over the past 6 months or so.
We are 1 month away from the start of early voting for the Texas primary, and we're getting a glimpse at where the candidates for U.S. Senate stand. A new poll from Nexstar and Emerson College Polling shows Austin area State Representative James Tallarico leading Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. The poll of more than 400 likely Democratic primary voters shows Tallarico with 47% support, 9 points ahead of Crockett.
Yeah, it was a little surprising to see Tallarico up by this margin. However, I will point out that there are still 15% undecided, and this is not necessarily a done deal. There is space here for Crockett to come up. We do plan on polling this race again before the primary. But I think that just overall, voters have tuned in more than earlier in the month or in December of 2025. We've seen folks, especially in December, folks are distracted. They aren't necessarily thinking about the Senate race. So I think as we've seen folks turn their attention to the race, and as the races and the campaigns themselves have really begun in earnest, I think that that has had a major effect, plus additional media coverage of the races. I think we're starting to see some selection here, some folks finally starting to make up their mind. And yet there is still space there. There is still a ways to go. What we're seeing here is that Tallarico is winning among Hispanic voters and white voters by not a substantial margin. So there is still space there for Crockett, but he is winning those voters, majorities of those voters nonetheless. Meanwhile, Black voters are supporting Crockett with nearly 80% of the vote there. So I do think that she has consolidated that vote. We also see that more educated voters support Tallarico, and that men support Tallarico at higher rates.
I said on the first day of this campaign, I've said it every day since, that we are the underdog in this race, both in the primary and in the general.
In a statement, Crockett said, "Though I have doubts about the overall validity of this data and it fails to paint the full picture, there's only one Democrat the poll shows beating a Republican, and it's me."
We do plan on polling this race again. We'll see if these results hold, but you can call us an outlier, and that's fine, because we might be in this case. Again, people make up their minds and things shift. The electorate is not static.
But I give it only a matter of time before life's big dick comes crashing down on the ghetto queen and she's forced to bow out, losing her shot at a Senate seat and being removed from Congress fully, hopefully, altogether. But she does command the black female vote for now. And I also don't put much weight in polls either, so there's that. However, they'd hype up free stuff like stimulus checks or food stamps to lock in those votes, even if it meant stretching the truth.
It's because back in 2020, the Democrats utilized the black demographic to go out and riot and act a fool. And they said, oh, if you just elect us, we'll give you reparations and we'll force the police to wear body cameras and all these wonderful, amazing things, right? So black people showed up like we are known to do, and we voted up and down for one side of the aisle. And what did we get for it? Nothing, as usual, because many of us never learn. But now,
People get offended and try to say I'm too black, but the reality is that y'all never let the fact that I am black go. So I'm going to be clear about one thing. I know my good black history, but this looks like modern day slave patrols. And they have been sanctioned by this Supreme Court.
Sure, we need Supreme Court reform ASAP. I have a number of bills for that if I could just get, enough Democrats to help me get this done. But we need ethics reform. We need to expand the court. There's a lot that we need to do with this Supreme Court because of how utterly trash they are. So,
and I know we're all supposed to be talking about Ilhan Omar getting served a fatal blow, but stick with me here, everyone, and you will see exactly how this all ties together in the end. And it is a glorious ending to the story. But as you see, Jasmine Crockett sitting there and calling the Supreme Court trash while rocking Dollar Tree lashes and claws, sipping on a bottle of Hood Rat vodka. I mean, it's just peak irony. This St. Louis girl falsely claims she repped Botham Jean's family. She's hid millions in stocks, now faces FEC straw donor probes and throws tantrums in Congress. But she proposes packing the Supreme Court if she could just get enough Democrat votes.
Jasmine Crockett, how you feel about her? I know you ain't really, seeing eye to eye with her, huh?
An idiot. She's an embarrassment. She says all kinds of stupid stuff. She's got a Memphis connection. She went to a private school, college here, Rhodes College, founded by the person that set up apartheid in South Africa 150 years ago. So she went to that elite private school. Then she went to, Thurgood Marshall Law School. She's a fake. She tries to be ghetto, and she's just as boule as she gets. With her wig hat on and her barns door-sized fake eyelashes and saying the ignorant stuff she says. I call her Coonskin Crockett. She wants to be a plantation mammy who is a special category, which is a third floor bed wench. And they have a male and female in the Democratic Party, and she's one of them.
But now, as more Black Americans are waking up to this and shifting away, the Dems are pivoting hard. They're focusing on undocumented immigrants and still targeting the most entitlement-minded groups. And that's fueling the rise of socialism and groups like the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. It's gaining traction, popularity, and even going viral for clicks, despite the fact that history shows socialism just doesn't work in practice.
You know why you're not seeing a lot of black people out there protesting against ICE? You know why you're seeing predominantly white people only at these events? It's because back in 2020, the Democrats utilized the black demographic to go out and riot and act a fool. And they said, oh, if you just elect us, we'll give you reparations and we'll force the police to wear body cameras and all these wonderful, amazing things, right? So black people showed up like we are known to do, and we voted up and down for one side of the aisle. And what did we get for it? Nothing, as usual, because many of us never learn. But now, here in 2026, we're seeing individuals who were slavishly devoted to the Democrat Party. Now they're seeing the Democrats over their entire 4 years in office under Joe Biden. They went out of their way to ingratiate themselves to illegal immigrants, and they sometimes prioritized illegal immigrants, even in black communities, ahead of black American citizens. And black people are sitting there saying, wait, you said you were going to give us reparations, you're going to give us X, Y, and Z, and we got nothing for it. So the silver lining is a lot of people are waking up and realizing the Democrats are only courting their next prospective voting bloc. They want to exploit illegal immigrants for an entire generation, much like they've exploited the black community for the previous several generations. And they're daring you to call them out on that and see it for what it is. So if you're wondering why you only see predominantly white liberals out here acting a fool, rioting and protesting against ICE, it's because ICE is threatening their ability to cater to that next demographic that they desperately want to lock in for an entire generation. And that's just the God's honest truth. Those are my thoughts. Hopefully you agree. And if you do, let me know in the comment section down below.
And so you see, and it pains me to say this, but Jasmine Crockett was right.
They not even going, honestly, they're about to outlaw the idea of white supremacy and white hate. Like they are about to be like, oh, that's not a thing. Forget the fact that you're talking about getting rid of like the classification for nooses in a time in which we have seen these random black bodies be strung up down south. Also, seemingly at a time in which you're back in office, because what you do is you embolden the hate. You embolden everybody to take off their hoods. That is what he has done. He is the one that is producing this violence. Listen.
Random black bodies strung up down south? Well, Jasmine, allow me to borrow words from Bernice King, who said yesterday, you don't get to cosplay as unity while rewriting the struggle.
The recent claim by President Trump that the 1964 Civil Rights Act harmed white Americans is just wrong, and it's dangerous. It rewrites history in a way that fuels fear and resentment. My fathers and so many leaders of the movement, Fred Shuttlesworth, Diane Nash, John Lewis, I can call the roll, but I won't do it today, did not risk their lives to divide this nation. They did not risk their lives to divide this nation. They did so because America was denying millions basic rights, the right to work, the right to vote, to live where they please, to move through society with dignity. The Civil Rights Act did not give black people special treatment. It made discrimination illegal. The same discrimination you're trying to turn around and use. It required the law to protect everyone equally. That is democracy.
And so you see, we can play this game all day, and I actually really quite like it. I enjoy it because for each lie told, I get the opportunity to share the truth. And yes, of course, MLK Day was a prime opportunity for the left to incite anger and rage in the black community because boo freaking who, President Trump didn't honor MLK Day and Dr. King. But does it matter that neither did I? I don't think so. I mean, but who am I really? Just little old me? How about Barack Obama? I'm sure he did, of course. I mean, why wouldn't he? I mean, when it suits him best, he loves to guilt trip blacks into voting for his desired candidate, or at least whoever he can line up to try and defeat Trump.
Communities is that we have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly. and say that when you have a choice that is this clear, when on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences. Who's had to work harder and do more and overcome.
A political party that thinks gender is just a state of mind, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, we have trouble with moderate biological males. I mean, who is surprised about this? I think Democratic Party elites like Obama and like others have been viciously attacking Donald Trump since 2016. And everything they've said about him is what they have always said about him. And I don't think it's particularly effective right now. I think their problem isn't attacking Trump. Their problem is finding reasons to give people to support Kamala Harris. This stop he made in this plea he's making to African-American men. I mean, he said today he insulted them. I mean, he first of all admits that they're not enthusiastic about her. He said, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president, and you're coming up with other alternatives and reasons for that. And I think one thing we've seen about Democrats over the years is that when they can't convince you to do something, they begin to insult you. Obama specifically, when he was having trouble with rural voters in Pennsylvania, go back all the way into his campaigns, he insulted them about their culture and values. I don't think it's helpful to insult a group of people who are already not enthusiastic about your campaign, but I think that's what he did today.
Exactly.
And I also saw one yesterday where Josh Shapiro explained why he didn't get selected as the VP running mate for Kamala.
Viewed by many as a top contender for the 2028 Democratic presidential nomination, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is now detailing his experiences during the 2024 campaign. And while it doesn't go on sale until next week, Shapiro's new memoir is already making headlines. Shapiro writes that while under consideration to be then VP Kamala Harris's running mate, he was asked by a Harris aide several questions about Israel, including whether he was a, quote, agent of the Israeli government. Shapiro writes in the book that he found questions offensive and said so at the time. Shapiro is Jewish and was facing questions by some within the Democratic Party for criticizing pro-Palestinian protests on college campuses amid the Israel-Hamas war. Now, Harris ended up, of course, selecting Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate and went on to lose Pennsylvania by just over 120,000 votes to President Trump.
But now, ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourselves to be amazed. More insults from seemingly prominent Black public figures and just insulting us more and more in 5, 4, 3, 2.
You faced a lot of racism growing up in Columbus, Ohio. How did that shape you?
Whew. Well, the military wouldn't allow Black families to live on the base, so you had to live in an apartment. And you couldn't take a bus. You couldn't afford a car. You walked. Your dads walked to the base. And sometimes we would go from tree shade to get back to the apartment. My brother and I, my mom, with bags, and my mom would go, "Don't look, don't look, don't look," and she'd pull us away. Wow. Because there is someone hanging from a tree, and they have a memorial for it now, where you can see where people were and left. And it triggers me today to see that a voice can be silenced. And if a white family supported a Black, they're gonna get burned down or killed or lynched as well.
Yeah. So as former President Barack Obama lectured a group of Black men over their lack of enthusiasm for Vice President Kamala Harris, Obama having stated that some of us Black men are finding excuses to stay home or vote for someone else due to Kamala being a woman, we see now The View hosts here and guest Pam Grier, who says she had to close her eyes as a kid in Ohio to avoid seeing Blacks hung on trees. And now we must, especially if you want to get a good laugh, take a look down at these comments, because Now all I want to know is who is paying her and how much? Or better yet, what the is she smoking? However, per Grok, Greer's biographies consistently describe her childhood in Denver, Colorado, where she attended East High School, with time spent on her grandparents' farm in Wyoming and brief stints abroad due to her father's Air Force career. Some sources note early memories of discrimination in Columbus, Ohio, but her primary upbringing and schooling were in Denver after the family settled there around 1958. This discrepancy, combined with the lack of historical evidence for lynchings in Ohio during her lifetime, suggests her story is inaccurate at best, whether due to misremembering, exaggerating, or fabrication. Or how about this one here? Left by calling occupants of interplanetary craft that says, or asks rather, Black people weren't allowed to live on base? This woman is full of shit. Citing President Harry S. Truman's signed Executive Order 9981 on July 26, 1948, declaring a policy of equality of treatment and opportunity in the armed forces without regard to race, color, religion, or national origin. This aimed to end discrimination, including in housing, messing, and other facilities, with instructions that no special or unusual provisions will be made for the accommodations of Negroes, meaning no segregated facilities should be created or maintained. Or better yet, how Pam Grier was born in 1949, but the last lynching in Ohio happened in 1911. Gaslighting and lies. As usual, Pam Grier just disgraced all the people who actually suffered from hangings. Grier needs to apologize immediately for lying about this. All they do is gaslight. And she gets triggered over memories she doesn't even have. And liar. But that's the point, isn't it? Propagandists don't need facts to convince millions that America is some systemically awful place. Just say it over and over and over again, and the soft brains will believe you. And he's absolutely right. But go ahead, Barack. Post about MLK Day, which I'm not sure if he even did. But go ahead and post your happy birthday wishes to the woman who you say lights up every room she walks into. I love you, Mish. Is he talking about her like passing gas or something? I think he misspelled Mike. But yeah, post your congratulations to Indiana University and Coach Signetti on winning their first college football playoff national championship. And as you say, one of the greatest turnarounds of all time. Because you know what? Yeah. He's right. And here we are. One of the greatest turnarounds of all time.
Think about what globalization is. Let's find the cheapest labor in the world and do it. And what that means is that the workers in Ohio who make cars, in Michigan who make cars, everybody, remember once upon a time Intel made semiconductors and now they're all made in Taiwan. Why have we allowed our industrial base in America and really in Europe and in the UK to be just completely hollowed out beneath us? It didn't work for the workers. It didn't work for our economy. What it did is it exported our economy to the rest of the world. And so how did the U.S. grow? Kind of about the same as the rest of the world, right? We were in the 2s, they were in the high 1s. Now what's happened? Think about it. We're at the 1-year anniversary of Donald Trump. In the third quarter, we grew 4.3%. And I'm telling you, in the first quarter we're in right now, I think we're going to grow over 5%. The $30 trillion U.S. economy is now going to be growing at 5% or more because we are taking care of ourselves. We finally have an industrial policy that is sensible for America, right? It's going to grow manufacturing in America. I was in Syracuse. We announced the opening of a $100 billion $100 billion mega fab building high bandwidth memory, right, in upstate New York. When was the last time upstate New York had any investment, let alone one that's going to bring in 25,000 jobs? The Micron's investment in America of $200 billion, it's going to bring in 90,000 jobs to America, and we have over $750 billion of that coming to America. This is how you reindustrialize America.
It takes time.
This is how you do it under Donald Trump.
Have you killed off the Green New Deal?
It's done. It's dead. So you actually see on the left this debate going on right now where a lot of people within the Democratic Party, they are talking about how they've lost the narrative or the culture war on climate. The problem for them was that they were pushing forth policies that adopted the approach that in order to protect the environment, you have to strangulate out of existence entire sectors of the economy. Conservatives believe that we could protect the environment and grow the economy. We've proven that in the first year of President Trump's term.
But like I said, I could do this all day. Onward and upward. America is healing and we are moving on to bigger and better things. The future looks bright, ladies and gentlemen, but in just the first year of President Trump's second term, we have proven so much. And in President Trump's first year, America took our border back. But that's not all either. 1 year in, President Trump restored law and order and put America first. 1 year later, Trump and Republicans turned an agenda into action. 7,000 illegal immigrant gang members busted in the first year of Trump's second term. Make America safe again. And exactly 1 year ago, President Donald J. Trump was sworn in as the 47th president of the United States. Hand on the Holy Bible. And the incredible successes that would follow are unparalleled in history. But the best is yet to come because all we do is win. But if you're keeping score at home, you see Democrats standing up for the Fed, health insurance companies, illegal alien criminals, and widespread fraud. And yes, they sat around thinking this out. This is the Dems' plan. Import a new voting bloc from the third world, bribe them with free government benefits for their votes, never lose elections again, become a one-party totalitarian government that rules with an iron fist like California, destroy America. It must stop. But speaking of California destroying America, and it must stop, I have this one here from Davos, where Gavin Newsom, described here by Stephen Chung, assistant to the president and White House director of communications, who says, Newsom sounds like a petulant child who can't control his emotions. So he sits there wildly gesticulating like mommy didn't give him enough attention. Maybe he needs to be sent to his room, but we all know that that could be more trouble. But the real reason why Newsom opposes Trump, Besant, MAGA, conservatives, and us so much is because he's a cog in the wheel, a pawn on the board, a tool. Not very useful, but a tool nonetheless, used by the left. And his only objective is to A, rob California taxpayers blind, and B, deliver more low IQ Marxist propaganda. You see, the corrupt Democrats all repeat the same lies in unison, sounding just like a typical left-wing fool.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
We're not bitching. We're just making fun of the way he moves his hands around. Or how he tries to be a man. I mean, he ordered soup the other day. He knows how I feel about it. And he is watching the show because he didn't drink it on camera. And so he's making progress as a man, but we know the truth. Repeating the same word over and over again is why Democrats lost. Paying a political consultant to tell you what to say, and everybody saying it at the same time over and over again, is why everybody thinks Democrats are corny. And they didn't even get their money's worth because Jeb called them an agent of chaos. Hillary did it, Pelosi, Nancy, they've all said it. And I guess it's better than being called a dictator. I think he kind of likes being called a dictator. You can kind of see it in his eyes. But shouldn't Dems come up with their own line of attack? These are professional politicians. Why are you paying anybody? You should know what to say about a guy who you've been running against for 10 years.
Yeah, we're after 4 o'clock. That means it's bedtime for the former president during that period of time. I just got to ask you, what do you say to those people that say it's time to move on? I mean, it just seems like every time there's a scandal, we say something is true. We were saying it for 5 years. They say we were lying. They said all of our reporting were chief fakes. And then when we finally get the evidence, they tell us it's time to move on. Like, we just can't keep going in these circles. Final word.
Well, that's Democrat operating procedure. That's what they do. When the Democrats are caught red-handed, it's time to move on. And the sad thing is the New York Times, the Washington Post, LA Times, Chicago Tribune, they follow lockstep with the Democrat Party and they move on. But look what we've uncovered. Joe Biden was not running the country. That is crystal clear. Now we know that Barack Obama actually ordered a new intelligence report based upon fake information to draw a conclusion that the Russians interfered on behalf of Donald Trump. That was a lie. That is now proven. But they want to move on and want to deflect and dissemble. We knew that the laptop from hell was real, but they wanted to lie and ignore it and move on. So time and time again, the Democrats have proven they do not believe in transparency with the American people. They do not believe in the will of the American voter. They will subvert the will of the voter if it means they get to keep power. We got to uncover this stuff. It's about the future of our country. That matters more than anything else.
Byron Donalds talks a lot about the future of this country. He's running for governor for the state of Florida. He's a congressman on that committee. We're going to be following Congressman. We appreciate it, brother.
And to use the word chaos, that's what they are. When they were in charge, we had open borders, we had coups, we had crime waves and wars, high inflation. They're just projecting. And I think chaos, when they say it, really means change. Because the American voters voted for this. They wanted change. It's not chaos, it's just Trump getting results, something Democrats could never do.
Years. And by the way, we just had the Trump shutdown, the longest government shutdown in history. By the way, it is the Trump shutdown. That's what most Americans blame it on. So look, it's simply not your party. It's simply not a good economic outlook for President Trump.
You know, what you're saying, Harold, is that with respect to FEMA, where, you know, the Congress is not being brought back, do you hear yourself?
Absolutely.
The reason we don't, let me finish, the reason that we don't have money for Americans is because your party made the decision to move that money to other places for other people. Otherwise, do you know that we've spent $66 billion of our taxpayer money this past year for people who don't ask to come here, demand to be allowed here, come here and just live off? They get education, medication, housing, everything else. Do you hear yourself when you say that that border bill is the toughest bill in the last 50 years? It's a joke. 7,500 from 10, 12, 15 different entry points are going to limit it. How do you know when you're at 7,500? That's number one. And number two, I don't want more border patrol so that they can allow more people into this country. I don't want more judges to make it easier for them to come into this country and apply their asylum claims. I don't need more of that. I need the border closed. Do you hear yourself when you're fighting for illegals and not Americans? Now, let me answer the question about this segment. This is a new era in journalism. The questioner is so biased and so biased to begin with that they don't care what the interviewee's answer is. They only care that the American public hear them. I know the answer, I know the facts, and I don't care what you say.
Okay, crossing the border illegally is not a crime?
No, it's not a criminal act. Okay. It's a misdemeanor.
So why are they being sent back and saying that they're breaking the law?
That's the point.
Okay, as somebody that actually...
We don't know if they're breaking the law because they won't tell. There's no due process. Where's the evidence? That's the whole point. And if they are breaking the law, most people will say, okay, then they need to go if they're criminals. But if they're not, why are they being rounded up and sent out? Especially when he promised to deport the criminals. And now he's not doing that.
Yeah, I don't think we're going...
Misdemeanor is not a crime. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So misdemeanor is not a crime?
It's not a criminal act, no. If you get charged with a misdemeanor, that's not a criminal act.
So why get charged at all then, if it's not a criminal act?
Because we have different levels of crime. Everything is not the same.
So it is crime.
No,
it's just
we have different levels of. I shouldn't say crime, but it's not. It's not a crime. You're not breaking the law. I mean, you are breaking the law, but it's not a criminal act.
So it's breaking the law.
No,
the law, but it's
you're
just
not
a
breaking the law.
level
A misdemeanor is not
crime.
breaking the law.
No.
If you're speeding, drinking, get pulled over, DUI.
That's not a criminal. Well, no,
It's a
if you're
misdemeanor.
speeding is a misdemeanor.
It's a misdemeanor.
Right.
So it's still breaking the law.
Okay. Well, if you want to qualify that, we're doing semantics.
Because
But what I'm
you
saying,
pulled over.
but what I'm trying to tell you is everything is not the same. It's all not one thing.
But is it the law?
What is it? The law that what?
Is it a law to come
Is
over
there a
legally?
law?
Is there a law?
There are rules that processes that you should follow. Yeah. So you're breaking rules. You're breaking the rules, but you're not necessarily breaking a law.
So what happens when you break the rules?
Then you suffer the consequences. But the consequences should not. Look, no one is saying no one should suffer the consequences. You guys are getting things mixed up.
The Democrats do this every time. And they did it in the last election. They did it when they said, you asked the question, has anyone lost an election when they said it's not that bad? No one. Kathy Hochul said crime in New York wasn't that bad. She didn't lose. They buy it. I got to go.
And she's got to go. You're going to stay here, though.
So Dems have actually come out with their strategy. But it's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
To everyone here tonight, I feel really lucky to be in this room. Thank you so much. To be honest, I really don't feel deserving, and it's very strange to be celebrated for working towards environmental justice at a time where it feels less achievable than ever, given the state of our country and the world right now. We're seeing our neighbors being kidnapped, peaceful protesters being assaulted and murdered, our civil rights being stripped, resources to fight the climate crisis being cut, fossil fuels and animal agriculture destroying our planet and people's health, access to food and health care becoming a privilege for the wealthy instead of a basic human right for all Americans. Very clear that protecting our planet and our communities are not a priority for this administration, and it's really hard to celebrate that when we no longer feel safe in our own homes or in our streets. But I am so inspired by all of the stories and the other honorees tonight and everyone in this room.
Billie Eilish is clueless, as ever and always, but much like the rest of woke Hollywood, who've all made far too much money to even for 1 second resort back to using their brains to exhibit even the slightest bit of common sense. But I am in accordance with the internet and how all the comments concur that everything she says is a lie. And as for her neighbors being kidnapped, is she talking about illegals? But I just want to know, does she have any working for her? I mean, come on, give me a break. This is almost as bad as that one Selena Gomez clip we saw during the election campaign.
I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children. I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise.
Celebrities, not to get too political, but they just make it worse.
Your whole career.
No, I mean with you guys. They just make it worse. Celebrities do when they speak, and they're almost always on one side of the political divide.
Yes.
And that's basically the side I vote for. You know, as I always say to my woke friends, we voted for the same person. You're just why she lost.
Lost a House seat because the number of bodies, not citizens, bodies in California went down.
The current ICE raids violate American values and constitutional rights.
The border should be strengthened. I think we can all agree on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what do you do with the people that are here that aren't criminals?
Just want to take a bird's eye view of all of this. It has to do with the number of representatives in the House that are allotted to each state. Why did Nancy Pelosi want to give free houses to undocumented immigrants? Why? Because of apportionment. California had the most U-Haul rentals of people leaving California. So in order to counteract that and get their House seat back, they're incentivizing illegal immigration. Please try to take the emotion out of of it for 1 millisecond, I know that it's hard, but it really has to do with the number of bodies, the number of House seats, and power. Because I guarantee you, if apportionment went back to just counting U.S. citizens,
which is
the
true,
Democrats
the map would
wouldn't
change.
give two shits about illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
And I want to say one more thing too. My family, I was born in New York, like in 1979, and we went back to Iran and the revolution started, and they wouldn't let Jews leave. My father was threatened with his life. He said he was going on a medical conference, flew to Vienna, left the passports of me, my sister, and my mother in the government's hands so that they knew we weren't escaping. My mother hired smugglers. We went to the bazaar one day. They put us in the back of a covered truck. We were in fetal position with strangers. Burlap sacks and corn were put on top of us, and we were taken to the border of Pakistan, where we got into a pickup truck. That night in the desert, border police caught us and started shooting at us. We lived in Pakistan for 3 months waiting for visas to reunite with my father. We stayed in Vienna for 3 more months to get legal documents to come to this amazing country legally. It's the right way to do it. We can't not know who is here. They just found a Hamas, somebody who participated in the October 7th attacks. They caught him here in the U.S. Why? Because when Biden administration let all these people in without checking who they are, they let in a Hamas terrorist who participated in October 7th.
It's genuinely refreshing when someone directly cuts through the spin. Democrats wanted to arrest everyone, vaccinate everyone, tax us all to oblivion, ignore U.S. immigration and voting rules. All for what? All they know is the repeating cycle. And I can tell you with full faith that Dems get power and do bad things, like letting 15 million people into the country illegally, at the least. But if then they are punished by the voters and Republicans get power and then we do nothing at all, well, then they or we are punished by the voters and Dems get power again. But then just more bad stuff happens, which is what the left wants. But you'd think this would get them deplatformed for copyright and plagiarism, just repeating the same propaganda word for word over and over again. But folks, I think for myself, I don't pay someone to write for me so I can just read scripts and talking points in hopes of getting paid. These are my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my duty as a patriotic, gun-toting, flag-waving, America First American man who loves this country. Plus, not to mention, I don't expect you all to want to come here and listen to me talk if all I'm going to do is repeat what everyone else is saying and probably what you've already heard. I try and bring you something new, something fresh, and dots connected so that you're well armed and equipped with the truth and can go out there, fight and win the day and carry the torch for this country. I work hard to filter through these murky and muddied feeds to compile important information and package it well so that it can be shared in a calm, casual, unapologetically, while still maintaining a compelling and mature story that is on the level for all of you busy folks out there who want to know, but just don't have the time available to do all the digging. So thank you for allowing me to do it for you. 22 Democrat senators were just caught using the same script and clips word for word, parroting the same script like robots. No authenticity, just pushing their party propaganda. Nothing but puppets. All of them. It's a psyop. Democrats say it ad nauseum, but it really is quite embarrassing for them. They have zero credibility left. But these old dinosaur bureaucrats think it's 2005 where people still blindly believe the media. Those days are gone. We can fact check them in real time, and we are the media now. Oh, and on day one, Trump signed executive orders to start lowering energy costs, including the Unleashing American Energy Order and declaring a national energy emergency, directing agencies to cut burdensome regulations, boost domestic oil, gas, coal production, and expedite projects. These kicked off deregulation that should help bring down prices over time as implemented, not to mention soon after, the USDA announced a $1 billion plan to combat bird flu and lower egg prices, focusing on biosecurity, vaccines, farmer relief, reduced regulations, and exploring alternatives to mass culling, though no executive order outright banned killing infected chickens, and culling continued for outbreaks per policy, but egg prices later dropped significantly.
Their plan is to
That is the truth.
That is the truth.
And that is the truth.
And that is the truth.
I recognize you haven't reviewed all the material
anymore.
But
You have the
I
diverse,
don't. The percentage. Who are you to tell me what I can and can't? I've never met you, brother. I can say whatever I want. They're illegal aliens, and that's what the law calls them. Illegal aliens. That's what I'm going to call them.
Right. Listen, you can't say illegals anymore because ICE is directly targeting legal citizens of this country. And How
are you going to enforce your edict on me, just out of curiosity?
Listen, I understand.
But just listen to his point about illegal.
No, I want to know why he gets to instruct
You're
my
changing the
students.
topic.
Hang on.
You're making a point
making an
about the
emotional
people being
plea.
arrested. Go
I
ahead.
understand that your job is predicated on just getting increasingly more demented every single week, and that the audience comes back to see if perhaps
Make your point.
My point is that you're saying the word illegals, but
it's in
you
federal
don't
law.
even really know what's happening. Or actually, I think you do, and
Sure,
you're
I do.
doing this on purpose. But
Yes,
the truth
because
is,
I want the law enforced.
they are not just targeting illegal immigrants.
They
They
are.
are targeting natural-born U.S. citizens.
They are not.
That is a fact. You
They are
cannot
not.
deny that. I mean, you can on national television.
They are
deny
not.
facts all the time.
They
You've
are
done it a
not.
couple times in this very episode.
I still want to know how you're going to enforce your language
God's
edicts on me.
We'll take that up.
How are we going to enforce it?
We're going to take that up in the break.
Here we go again. Here we go again with the natural-born U.S. citizen shtick. But we've already discussed birthright citizenship and the Supreme Court's ruling until we were blue in the face. Not to mention that is no way even close to a logical argument to even consider halting the legal federal enforcement of immigration law there, sport. But as you all saw, this young, dumb Democrat punk on CNN thinks he can sit there and tell Scott Jennings that he doesn't get to say the word illegals anymore, and then called him demented. I know CNN must pay Scott a lot of money because I would need something very strong to restrain me from putting this kid in his place. They are incredibly cringe, and it's scary how righteous they are. But the real skill is the ability to remain calm while watching your opponent's voice reach higher and higher octaves as the conversation progresses, and you not lose your composure in a fit of just straight up belly laughter. But I got to hand it to him. Scott Jennings is a master at such things, shutting this kid down worse than Nicki Minaj did Don Lemon last night when she said.
So people have been asking me about responding to Nicki Minaj's unhinged, homophobic tweet about me. I usually don't respond to this stuff, but let me just say this. Nicki Minaj, stop talking about shit for which you know nothing about. This is out of your depth, by the way, and you are a homophobic bigot. You don't care about African Americans, and you're not an African American. From what I know, you are reportedly an undocumented citizen, so you should be deported under Donald Trump's rules. And the other thing is that your family members, you have one family member who is reportedly a sex offender, the other family member, your husband or whatever, a sex offender is your husband, and one of them is reportedly a pedophile. And you have nerve to talk about me and what you think that I do? Nicki Minaj, get a life. Stop being a pick-me. You should have put a pick-me doll on that damn tweet instead of a Chucky doll, because you are nothing but a pick-me. And I choose not to pick you. And so should black people, and so should gay people. Shouldn't buy your music. Clock that.
Man, what a fragile, weak, gay man. But who the does he think he is? Some almighty in control of all the blacks and all the gays? Please. If this dumbass didn't make such an epic and fatal mistake yesterday, no one would even be speaking his name today. And what a dumb idea it was to film and record his crime. Just like a libtard. But it's funny how the same riot insider wants to, and all of a sudden, be pro-immigration enforcement when he gets his feelings hurt by an actual star and legal U.S. resident. What a dumbass Don Lemon is. But I guess this is just the to be expected next stage of grief before he gets locked up and thrown in jail.
I mean, Don Lemon says that he was only doing journalism. Harmeet Dillon, on the other hand, the DOJ saying, I don't think so. Watch.
We have a presumption of innocence in this country, so I want to preserve my ethical duties here. But let me just say that, he's a journalist. He was a journalist. I don't know what he is now, but journalism is not a badge or a shield that protects you from criminal consequences when you are part of a crime. And I think the videos show how close he was to these folks.
Yeah, these folks. One of the protesters who took over a church service and screamed, "Shut it down," works for Minneapolis's local prosecutor, is married to a St. Paul councilwoman, is running for state senate, and runs Homes for Homies, taking Section 8 money and steering it to black criminals. Don Lemon interviewed Jamiel Lundy, Jamal maybe, I don't know, from the crowd at random and asked him about how the crowd was grassroots. But Lundy is the Intergovernmental Affairs Coordinator for Hennepin County, Attorney Mayor Mary Moriarty, handling the prosecutor's communications with federal officials. Not only that, but protesters, perhaps including the staffer of the local prosecutor, could face federal charges after they stopped the Christian service, and one said, "This ain't God's house, it's the house of the devil." But again, good find in the Don Lemon footage. He is very close to these folks, I can assure you.
Yeah, no doubt they handled it the right way. John, you're also in Minnesota. And some of the details, I heard Harmeet Dillon say this earlier, that there was one of the people shouting at a family with a child was recently arrested under catch and release in Minnesota. She believes he was released on Friday, just 2 days before the church protest. What are you hearing about these protesters? Because it's very vague, and I don't quite understand who they are. We're trying to gather as much information as we can.
Well, you kind of have a combination of groups here. I believe the person you were speaking about is William Kelly. He's this lunatic that apparently is well-funded, going state to state and pushing back on ICE. The other individuals, and specifically the person who organized the protest, was Nakima Levy Armstrong. She used to be the head of the Black Lives Matter movement going back to the George Floyd riots. And what we saw on Sunday was as diabolical as it was cowardly. You know, it's cold outside, and so they have to find other ways to go and protest. But the truth of the matter is, the reason why they did that is because they're losing the argument on the ground against their ridiculous and irrational pushback on ICE. Thank goodness that Elon Musk now runs X, because the messaging is not only exclusive to the left. Now conservatives are out there to counter all the misinformation and lies about what Immigrations and Customs Enforcement is doing. What they did on Sunday was a ramping up because they're losing the battle on the ground. And it really goes to show this is merely an extreme case of Trump derangement syndrome. It's not about illegal immigration anymore. It's all about going and pushing back against Trump and ultimately Christianity. And I'm convinced that they crossed the Rubicon on Sunday. And I hope that the Department of Justice drops the hammer on every single person that walked into that church and disrupted those individuals who were just there to go and worship their Lord and Savior.
Yeah, and I think they intend to. You know, we at Fox, we're still trying to independently verify names of who's at the...
Droppeth the hammer, and we will absolutely see heads roll. But President Trump just dropped the hammer on Don Lemon and the leftist church storming rioters after Trump posted this that says they should get years in prison for storming a Minneapolis church, harassing Christians mid-worship, and desecrating a house of God, all to obstruct ICE. Which is kind of funny when you read the caption on this reel here that says, ICE is operating in all 50 states and hundreds of cities, but the only place where there is chaos and violence is Minneapolis. So maybe ICE isn't the problem, but it just screams Fraudulent Dems want their fraud to continue, but also ask yourself why they're pushing this narrative. Why do they want Trump to fail so much? Why do they hate him so much?
I
You
recognize
don't get to say the
reviewed all
word
the
illegals
material
anymore.
But
But
I don't.
the percentage.
Who are you to tell me what I can and can't? I've never met you, brother. I can say whatever I want. They're illegal aliens, and that's what the law calls them. Illegal aliens. That's what I'm going to call them.
Yes, yes. And then Scott fired back with one simple question. How are you going to enforce your edict on me? And it was so satisfying to see. The punk couldn't even answer. He's the new replacement for CNN, a younger, dumber, white Don Lemon now, I guess. That and CNN is running low on putzes probably. But so you see, the Democrat playbook is simple. 1, create a hoax. 2, legacy media runs with it. 3, engage in lawfare. 4, get caught red-handed. 5, gaslight people who caught you. And then 6, claim it's time to move on. The Democrats do this every time. They did it in the last election and now are trying to do it again. Democrats manufacture talking points about Trump and repeat them until people accept them as fact. Just like the claim the longest shutdown in history under Trump, while ignoring the reality that Democrats rejected a clean CR and forced the shutdown themselves. They shut the government down, then blamed Trump for how long it lasted. Now watch and see if this talking point gets recycled nonstop heading into the midterms. This is narrative engineering. But you and we all know the true definition of illegals. And take a look at this. There's $19 billion in Minnesota Somali fraud. Fake Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, a constant complainer who hates the USA, knows everything there is to know. She should be in jail or even a worse punishment, sent back to Somalia, considered one of the absolutely worst countries in the world. And she could help make Somalia great again. Whistleblowers now confirm Ilhan Omar's campaign funneled a massive amount of money to her husband's firm, while Somali-linked networks in Minneapolis ran one of the biggest COVID relief fraud schemes in history, hundreds of millions stolen.
Well, now investigators are tracking the web of fraud to other Minnesota Democrats, such as Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Many of the suspects linked to the scheme live in her district, including a restaurant owner who hosted events for her. He has since been convicted of stealing $12 million in COVID funds.
So allow me to reiterate and clarify my original title and opening intro to Ilhan Omar and Don Lemon, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Tim Walz and the Democrats falling to pieces as he realizes they're coming for them. And Trump has made it abundantly clear.
We're also going to revoke the citizenship of any naturalized immigrant from Somalia or anywhere else who is convicted of defrauding our citizens. We're going to get them the hell out of here fast. And if you come to America to rob Americans, we're throwing you in jail and we're sending you back to the place from where you came. We're throwing you right in jail.
And so you see, ladies and gentlemen, the mainstream media, the left, screaming liberals, the Democrats have all shifted their attention and focus away from the black versus white racism approach and have now moved on to the legal versus illegal naturalized U.S. citizenship lie and propaganda push in an attempt and hope of redefining the term illegal, or just at the very least, trying to get us not to say the word as if we don't know what it really means. And I really do think that that young man who got sunned by Scott Jennings on CNN actually misunderstood the assignment. And instead of doing his homework and obeying his deep state DSA masters, he accidentally read what was on the cue card. For example,
I recognize you haven't reviewed all the material
anymore.
But I don't.
Yeah, the Democrats don't get to say the word illegal anymore because much like every other problem they've caused and stirred up, Now they want to pretend it doesn't exist and just ignore it and turn the page and move on, or try and memory hole America to accept a new reality where it's time for us all to flip the script. But no, we're not moving on. We're getting answers, and we all want justice. At the very least, getting our money back would be a freaking dream come true. But for now, if we could just toss these criminals in jail and deport the rest, I think I'd say, and you would all probably agree, that's a damn good start, right? More importantly, we must continue to speak up because, again, we are the secret weapon and we are the media now. And President Trump is right. In Minnesota, there's too much media attention on ICE and not enough attention paid to the staggering sums of money stolen from the state by corrupt Minnesota politicians.
It's worse. No, Minnesota, the crime is incredible. The financial crimes are incredible. And the problem is because of the agitators and insurrectionists, whatever you want, troublemakers, but they're paid agitators and insurrectionists. Nobody talks about the fact that $19 billion at a minimum is missing in Minnesota, given to a large degree by Somalians. They've taken it. Somalians, can you imagine? And they don't do it. A lot of very low IQ people, they don't do it. Other people work it out, and they get them money, and they go out and buy Mercedes-Benzes, and they come from here, they have no money. They never had money. They never had a life. They never had a government. They never had a country, because there's basically no country. Somalia is not even a country. They don't have anything that resembles a country. And if it is a country, it's considered just about the worst in the world. They come here and they become rich and they don't have a job. I was told that vicious, many of them murderers. These are all out of Minnesota, just Minnesota. I say, why don't you talk about that more? Because people don't know. Do you want to live with these people? International murder. These are people that are living, they're apprehended and either put in jails in their country from where they came, and the countries respect us, and so they actually put them there. In the old days, they didn't respect our country. Biden wouldn't do this because he let them all in. You know, if you didn't have open border policies of Biden, none of this, all of the things all of the time that we spend talking about Minnesota and everything else, most of them are coming from out of the country. And it's been caused by a previous administration. Look at this, one after one. Boy, these are rough characters. These are all criminal, illegal aliens that, in many cases, they're murderers, they're drug lords, drug dealers. They're the mentally insane. There's some of them who are brutal killers, they're mentally insane. They're killers, but they're insane. These are just in Minnesota. California, it's worse. In other states, it's worse. No, Minnesota, the crime is incredible. The financial crimes are incredible. And the problem is because of the agitators and insurrectionists, whatever you want, trouble.
Trump brought the receipts. The media didn't expect that, but we mustn't let the media or the Dems control the narrative. We must continue to deliver and focus on the truth. And the fact that Nick Shirley uncovered a Somalian-owned daycare in Minnesota that's getting $1.26 million in taxpayer funding, but you can't enroll children. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The daycare doesn't even have a registration form to enroll kids. It's all a front to launder our tax money.
We just want to get a statement as to why this daycare needs $1.26 million, and if it's even possible to enroll somebody like my child, my imaginary child, Joey. No, you guys can't give a clear statement, or could you even give me a paper to enroll a child into the daycare? Just to show that you guys are a legit business. It would debunk all claims if you could just give me a piece of paper saying where to enroll a child. You can't do that. Okay, well, thank you very much.
I honestly feel bad and almost kind of sorry for the Somalians right now, because if they really did need to enroll a child into one of these daycares, I mean, I guess they couldn't because they don't even offer an enrollment form. But the Minnesota state government is supposed to be verifying periodically that these are legit businesses. They are obviously not. The entire tax-funded daycare system should be abolished. I mean, honestly, now after this massive fraud has been exposed. And so what's the next stage of grief? I guess acceptance, and somewhat of an extension of an olive branch, it seems. But I am convinced Tim Walz knows his goose is cooked for sure now, and he's just playing a game and putting all this on for show now with this latest attempt at saving face. But I'll read this letter to the president here to you that says, Mr. President, Minnesota invites you to see our values in action. Come see how communities from all walks of life are working together and how the spirit of this state refuses to be defined by division or fear. I invite you to join me and others in our community to help restore calm and order and reaffirm that true public safety comes from shared purpose, trust, and respect. But let me be absolutely clear. The state of Minnesota will not be drawn into political theater. The Justice Department investigation, sparked by calls for accountability in the face of violence, chaos, and the killing of Renee Good, does not seek justice. It is a partisan distraction, he says, and Minnesotans are more concerned with safety and peace rather than with baseless legal tactics aimed at intimidating public servants standing shoulder to shoulder with their community. My focus has always been protecting the people of the state, not protecting myself. Families are scared. Kids are afraid to go to school. Small businesses are hurting. A mother is dead, and the people responsible have yet to be held accountable. That's where the energy of the federal government should be directed, towards restoring trust, accountability, and real law and order, not political retaliation. Minnesota will not be intimidated into silence, and neither will I. Signed, soon to be former Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. But come on, give me a break, dude. And forgive me if I don't care to see your values in action. Number one, and most importantly, I wouldn't put it past him to offer an invitation in an attempt at setting up another one of his assassination attempts. So let me just make that clear, okay? That's number one. Trump's safety is of utmost importance, and he will not be lured into this trap of Minnesota. Shared purpose, trust, and respect, bro, that ship has sailed and is long gone. Trust and respect is out of the window, and I wouldn't trust nor respect Tim Walz any more than I would a killer elephant on the loose. But it is too late. Tim, you've already turned this into political theater, and the fact that you have yet to resign says everything I need to know. But I do believe Tampon is being genuine when he says Minnesotans are more concerned with safety and peace. But the problem is, Tim thinks all these domestic terrorists are actual Minnesotans, and they are not. Tim has lost sight, much like Jacob Frey, but Ilhan Omar has never known a true Minnesotan because she is here for one reason and one reason only, to eradicate, not assimilate. Wall says families are scared, kids are afraid to go to school, small businesses are hurting, a mother is dead, and the people responsible have yet to be held accountable. All blood on your jazz hands there, Timmy, and there aren't enough tampons in Minnesota to sop it all up. But choose your next words carefully, for they may be your last. But what's that you say? Minnesota will not be intimidated into silence, and neither will I? Well, there's strikes 2 and 3 there. You're out of here, buddy.
get to that, I want to get to the breaking news we have just heard. The FBI has apparently just served subpoenas to several officials here in Minneapolis, including members of the office of Governor Tim Walz. We will bring you more information as we get it on those subpoenas. Meantime, the number of protesters out here at the federal building is diminishing every day, it seems, but the war of words between local officials and the Trump administration.
And there you have it, folks. The FBI has officially served Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Frey with subpoenas in the criminal investigation into them conspiring to impede ICE operations. But to clarify, yes, grand jury subpoenas were served today, January 20, 2026, to the office of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as part of this probe. Similar subpoenas were also delivered to the offices of Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, and several other state and local officials, including St. Paul Mayor Coley Kaali, I don't know what her name is, and county attorneys in Hennepin and Ramsey counties. Some reports specify that the FBI delivered these subpoenas on behalf of the DOJ, seeking records, communications, and policies related to interactions with ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents since last year. The investigation focuses on whether these officials conspired to impede or obstruct federal law enforcement during ongoing immigration operations in the Twin Cities area, amid protests and tensions following a recent fatal shooting involving an ICE agent. Officials like Walz and Frey are finally being stopped and will soon no longer be able to be a thorn in our sides nor impede the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. This is a developing story, so more details could emerge as responses to the subpoenas unfold. So stay locked in, everyone. But it looks like it's about to get really bad for these two soy boys, and so much better for all of us. But would you look at that? CNN can't help themselves, and producers rush to air a suburban mom saying she's flipped from Biden to President Trump after having said, and I quote, "Trump was right about everything."
There's that saying, Trump was right about everything, and that's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
This breakfast conversation, our sixth visit with Betsy Sarcone, dating back to August 2023. Her shift beyond dramatic. A DeSantis, then a Haley voter, said she would vote for Joe Biden if Trump won the Republican nomination. But she changed her mind.
I think Biden probably changed me more than Trump. I think watching nothing be done, for 4 years about an open border.
Now she gives Trump an A-, loves the immigration crackdown, just closed a big real estate sale, and thinks the economy is picking up. Sarcone laughed at Trump's 2020 election fraud claims when we first met. Another big change.
I'm starting to question the election of 2020, right?
He lost the election in 2020.
I don't know.
He lost the election in 2020.
The suburbs revolted against Trump in his first midterm, and Democrats are banking on it again. But Republicans don't have to worry about Sarcone. She likes Congressman Nunn and loves that her daughters can use a school choice plan.
And that cuck of a reporter or journalist trying to impose and plant more brainwashing into the mind of a woman who has clearly given up on the lies of the left and the Dems is peak TDS woke mind. Just saying Trump lost the election only states the fact that liars and cheaters swore in Biden, but it doesn't make it true, and it for damn sure doesn't make Sleepy Joe a frickin' winner. But hold up and just wait 1 minute. Let's not start sucking each other's quite yet, because Trump won for America, yes. But we must still fight these battles locally to win the war. This video here is absolutely outrageous, but it shows the Miami Beach mayor's office is now flagging citizens' Facebook posts and sending police to their doors to intimidate them for criticism of the mayor.
Picture to make sure it's you. We're not sure.
Okay.
Is that your account?
I refuse to answer questions without my lawyer present. So I really don't know how to answer that question either
well,
way.
like I said, you're not going to jail.
This is freedom of speech. This is America, right?
And
I'm a veteran.
And I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
We're just trying to see if it's you, because if we're not talking to the right person, we want to go see who the right person is.
Okay, how can I help you?
So pretty much it's just a statement that was made as far as
Verbatim, it says the guy who consistently calls for the death of all Palestinians tried to shut down a theater for showing a movie that hurt his feelings and refuses to stand up for the LGBTQ community in any way. Even leaves the room when they vote and on related matters. Wants you to know that you're all welcome. Clown face, clown face, clown face. 3 days ago.
So you don't know if it was you?
I'm not going to answer whether that's me or not.
Okay.
The concerning part, and not concerning for the person who's posting it, what we're just trying to prevent is somebody else getting agitated or agreeing with the statement. We're not saying it's true or not.
Understood.
That guy who consistently calls for the death of all Palestinians, that can probably incite somebody to do something radical. That's all we're here to talk about. And we wanted to get your side. If it was you that posted that, I would think to refrain from posting things like that, because that could get something inciting.
I appreciate your concern. I appreciate you coming out here.
Okay, that's it.
That is it.
Okay.
I'm going to maintain my amendment rights to not answer the question about whether or not that's me. I hope that's understandable.
All right.
We appreciate it.
Thank you
Have
as
a good
well.
day, okay?
You as well. Thank you. Take care.
Man alive. And as I live and breathe, well, here you go. How about this one? What if we just remove all the warning labels and let the problem sort itself out, right? Because apparently that's the new standard in some places. First off, huge credit to this woman for calmly filming and documenting the whole exchange with Miami Beach police showing up at her door over what sounds like a completely tame Facebook criticism of the mayor. She didn't incriminate herself, didn't lose her cool, and kept her rights front and center. That's smart in these times. Mind-boggling that we even have to think that way, but here we are. This is exactly why elections have consequences. But when you end up with a radical, easily butthurt mayor who can't handle basic criticism, like in Miami Beach, suddenly your social media posts get flagged and cops are dispatched for a voluntary chat about potential incitement from something that doesn't even come close to a real threat. And I wouldn't be surprised if the next step is to arrest you and throw you in jail, like over in Ireland, where an Irish teacher was arrested for refusing watch as a teacher in Ireland faces arrest again after declining to use a student's preferred pronouns, sparking free speech debates.
That's what he's doing. Refuse to use the they pronoun for a young child. Nobody wants it. Step into the back of the car. Nobody wants it. It's an abuse of power. Absolute insanity. Absolute insanity what's happening here at Wilson's Hospital
every
School.
Boy and girl and man and woman, forcing transgenderism on them. Nobody accepts this. They don't believe it. People don't want to be told what to believe in. Well, this is all.
But don't forget, for us here in America, the right to counsel might be the single most important right to remember right now. If police show up unannounced over your speech, I will remember to politely invoke it, stay calm, and record everything just like she did. But let's call out the massive double standard here, okay? Because the same people clutching pearls over a mild critique of a local politician will completely ignore or even amplify the nonstop, unhinged threats, violent rhetoric, and outright hate directed at President Trump, conservatives, Republicans, MAGA supporters, you name it. Death threats, assassination fantasies, punch a Nazi chants that somehow never count as incitement when aimed at the right side of the aisle. All of it falls on deaf ears. No welfare checks, no detective visits, no community safety concerns, none of that shit. And don't get me started on the weaponized artificial intelligence arm being now fired by the left at our direction, where Elon Musk now warns, don't let your loved ones use ChatGPT after this breaking news bombshell about how ChatGPT has now been linked to 9 deaths tied to its use, and in 5 cases, its interactions are alleged to have led to death by including teens and adults. Yet, one factual jab at a mayor's policies, and suddenly it's a potential crisis requiring police intervention. Talk about a dictatorship and fascism, right? And this isn't an isolated event either. Kate Avery says, when they came to my door in October, this was exactly the same argument they made about my tweets, that I hadn't threatened anyone and did not pose a threat, but that my tweets might make someone else angry enough to be violent. Like JFC, the absurdity. But let's be real. This isn't about safety. It's about power, control, and punishing dissent. Free speech isn't free if it's only protected when it flatters the people in charge. And to quote a favorite movie and song lyrics of mine, that goes a little something like this. Freedom isn't free. It costs folks like you and me. And if we don't all chip in, we'll never pay that bill. Freedom isn't free. Nope. There's a hefty fucking fee. And if you don't throw in your $1.05, who will? Stay vigilant, know your rights, and keep documenting, keep sharing and speaking up, as will I, and continue to post more of the truth. Because if we don't push back now, the warning labels really will be gone, and we'll all be left wondering how we got here, just like we're seeing in some of these cities and states that have allowed themselves to fall. Because while some conservatives were bleeding, if we fight dirty, we're no better than them, it took Democrats less than 24 hours after winning to put in express lanes to Sodom and Gomorrah. And you know what? They'll do this nationally as soon as they gain power, and democracy will end, which is their goal. Because not only have Democrats in Virginia introduced a bill to eliminate mandatory minimum sentencing for rape, manslaughter, assaulting a law enforcement officer, possession and distribution of child pornography, and all repeat violent felonies, Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger ends state police cooperation with ICE hours after taking office. And Democrats in Virginia have introduced a bill that discriminates against white men in government contracting. And so you see, while Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is cracking down on fraud, waste, and abuse in the 8A's set-aside government contracting program.
When President Trump appointed me as your Secretary of War, I made you a series of promises. I promised that every single one of your taxpayer dollars would go toward one thing and one thing only: building the most lethal fighting force on the planet. And I promised we would gut the corruptive, unconstitutional, non-merit-based DEI programs that have weakened our military and distracted us from our primary mission. And I promised we would hunt down the waste, the fraud, and the abuse that has run rampant in this department for decades, and to instead redirect that money to President Trump's America First priorities. Well, today, we are once again taking action on these promises. We're actually taking a sledgehammer to the oldest DEI program in the federal government, a program few people outside of Washington have ever heard of, that I hadn't heard of. It's called the 8A program. Now, if you're like me, you're asking yourself, what is an 8A? It's a great question. 8A refers to the Small Business Administration's program to assist, quote, small, disadvantaged businesses owned by a socially disadvantaged individual or tribe, end quote. Providing these small businesses with opportunities is a laudable goal. But over the decades, as it happens, the 8A program has morphed into swamp code words for DEI, race-based contracting. And here's the worst part. In many, many instances, these socially disadvantaged businesses, they don't even do work. They take a 10%, 20%, sometimes 50% fee off the top and then pass the contract off to a giant consulting firm, commonly known as Beltway bandits. For decades, this program, 8A, has been a breeding ground for fraud, and this administration is finally doing something about it. The Department of Justice under Attorney General Pam Bondi recently exposed $500 million in 8A fraud. Treasury, led by Secretary Bessent, found another $250 million, and their investigation is just beginning. Treasury, Justice, and the Small Business Administration under Administrator Loeffler are all actively investigating their 8A contracts right now. Now, in the Pentagon, $100 million sole source contracts go out the door to these 8A firms almost every day. $100 million sole source contracts go out our door to these 8A firms almost every day without any competition or opportunity for anyone else to bid. The Department of War is required by law to do almost $100 billion worth of contracts per year with small businesses, including 8A firms. Seems 8A is quite important. But we're not required to pay enormous brokerage fees, only to have these firms pass those contracts along to giant consulting companies. And we won't. We're not doing this anymore. So effective immediately, I'm ordering a line-by-line review of every small business sole source 8A contract that is over $20 million. And we'll look at everything smaller than that too. The Department of War has the biggest chunk of 8A spending by far, 10 times more than any other agency. So our cleanup, it's going to be 10 times tougher. It's a two-stage mission. First, if a contract doesn't make us more lethal, it's gone. We have no room in our budget for wasteful DEI contracts that don't help us win wars, period, full stop. Second, we're doing away with these pass-through schemes. We'll make sure that every small business getting a contract is the one actually doing the work, and not just some shell company funneling your money to a giant consulting firm. This approach is, of course, not meant to hurt small businesses, and that's not the point. America is full of great, amazing small businesses. This is part of a larger effort to transform our acquisition ecosystem into one that makes sense for the threats we face in the 21st century. I gave a long speech about this back in November. Our goal is to spend your money to build our defense industrial base with businesses large and small that share our mission, not to line the pockets of Beltway fraudsters or to advance the agenda of DEI apologists. Only lethality, and we're going to look at every single contract.
Virginia Democrats are openly advocating for more of the same and possibly worse than what we've all seen come out of Minnesota, and are saying, sure, we'll overpay by 5% as long as the contractor isn't white. Is a crazy public policy. And so for the discretionary contracts under 100K, white men are barred from even being considered unless there's literally no competition. And even then, this bill allows agencies to award contracts to women or minority-owned firms that are 5% more expensive than a bid from a business owned by a white man. I bet you the little Mogadishu rejects are already lining up and heading to Virginia, chomping at the bit. This is so insane, y'all. Next thing you know, they'll award contracts to trans for more than that of highly capable, qualified, and competitively bid white men's proposals.
If I hear of someone whose fashion that I like and I know that they're a person of color, I try to make it a point. But the clothes have to be available. You know, I think we can all do some work to think about that balance in our wardrobes. You know, what does our closet look like and who's in it? Mm-hmm. Who are we supporting in it? Right. You know, and I think if you have the money to buy Chanel, then you have the money to buy everybody. Right. And so let us be mindful, I think would be my advice. Yeah.
Black privilege. The ability to break every law in the country and still remain the victim. But honestly, I think it's more the Democrat, liberal privilege, or worse, the illegal alien and an undocumented, but will vote blue no matter who privilege. The rules for thee, but not for me, double standard privilege. The how quickly we forget, but are now all in sync, saying and repeating things like parrots and puppets. People that say, show me your papers, are never on the right side of history, or the never in the history of ever have the mass men demanding to see your papers been the good guys' privilege, as they try and convince you they aren't now either. But they hate it when you call out their hypocrisy. And like I said, I could do this all day. I'm so glad I never got those jabs. Yeah, but that And Virginia Dems' first move with new majority is to ban hand counting ballots. 48 hours. That's all it took. Virginia's new Democratic majority introduced HB 968, forcing machine-readable ballots through scanners and prohibiting hand counts for any reason unless explicitly allowed by law. Mind you, hand counts are virtually impossible to hack remotely and easy for anyone to watch. But tell me why, when half the country already questions election integrity, why rush to eliminate the most transparent backup method? Interesting priorities. Perhaps, maybe, the same priorities that f***ed over and jailed some old dude and his wife who both got arrested 5 years ago for doing the same thing as this liberal man standing armed outside of a home in St. Paul claiming to protect his neighbors from ICE. But to reiterate Trump, we have to lock these criminals up and deport the rest, or at least as many as we can. And it takes a lot of work to do so. This one here you might remember, but what might be news to you is how long and complicated the deportation process can be. This Haitian gang member with 17 convictions who may or may not have eaten the cats and the dogs went viral for yelling "F Trump, Biden forever," seen here on Fox News, and he's still in ICE custody living here in the U.S.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
Despite having a deportation order, I'm told he continues to use every legal avenue and appeal to try to avoid deportation. But he's currently detained by ICE at a facility in Louisiana. For added context, we witnessed him getting arrested by ICE in Boston on January 22nd, 2025. But ladies and gentlemen, this is where I leave you with quite possibly the most important message of the day. And while we can enjoy and partially celebrate the collapse of Don Lemon, Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, and Jacob Frey, and now the rest of the Somali fraudsters rapidly being exposed by independents like Nick Sorter and Nick Shirley and Benny Johnson, but we cannot let up now. We need massive momentum behind this right now. And so you see, Speaker Mike Johnson and House Majority Leader Steve Scalise are going full steam ahead to push through the SAVE Act Plus. And let me tell you, this could be a real game changer for election integrity. And here's why it's such a huge deal. This bill would finally mandate in-person presentation of proof. No more hiding behind screens or mail-ins. Voters would have to show their documents directly to an election official or at the office. That means it would effectively shut down online voter registration and those mail-in registration forms and even the big voter registration drives that have been ripe for abuse. On top of that, it requires real proof of U.S. citizenship. Think picture ID backed by solid documentation like a valid U.S. passport, birth certificate, real ID where it shows citizenship status, military card, or other government-issued ID that verifies you're a citizen. Bottom line, this locks in strict voter ID, demands proof of citizenship at registration, and slams the door on all the online and mail-in loopholes that open the door to fraud. We have to get this across the finish line. Contact your reps, spread the word, make noise. This is how we protect every legal vote and save the integrity of our elections.
Over to the Senate to give them even more incentive to go protect the sanctity of every American's vote. And that is the SAVE Act Plus, a picture ID requirement. Look, you can't even get on an airplane. You can't go to a bar tonight without showing a picture ID. Yet there are people in many states where the states actually have laws saying you can't show ID, which is a recipe for fraud, for stealing your vote if you're voting legally so that somebody can come behind you illegally in another country and actually vote and steal your vote. Because if somebody's voting illegally, they're stealing your vote if you're following the rules. So Save Act Plus picture ID, we're going to bring that too, send that to the Senate. I think a lot of Americans would like that protection because if they're following the rules, they just want everybody else to. What makes people angry is when you see boxes of ballots showing up 2 weeks after an election, and then next thing you know, lo and behold, a Democrat takes the lead after being behind for 3 weeks after Election Day. And then somebody who voted by mail in the military, they're overseas fighting to defend our freedoms. Their votes that got in legally before the election are being nullified by somebody illegally. It needs to stop. We're going to have a bill to do just that.
Let's keep the pressure on. This is our moment. Thank you all for watching. If you want me to publish more podcasts like these, subscribe to my channel and give this show a thumbs up. I really do appreciate you all. Your support really does help out a lot. Take care, be safe, and I hope to talk to you all again real soon. Please share this and help it reach the important people that really need this information. I'm sending out good vibes and praying for prosperity for us all. I hope you all have a pleasant evening and God bless.